Hi everyone, my name is Brenda Berry. I'm an author and contributor to Readerlicious.com. I'm bringing to you tonight an interview with SusanMcCauley, who is also an author with Readerlicious. I had the pleasure of meeting with a group of authors recently in Houston for a writer's retreat with Margie Lawson as the instructor, and Susan is part of that group. We had some great times together, had a lot of laughs, had fun, but also a lot of good quality writing time where I got to see what her writing style is like. And she has a story that I'd like to tell you about this month. Since we're so close to Halloween, it's a great time for you to read some spooky tales. And she has a story called The Nest in Bill of Frights. Bill of Frights is an anthology with 14 stories, so she was one of the contributors. And this book has been compared by one reviewer to Stephen King's Night Shift, which you can't get any better than that for a comparison. So you need to go out after this interview and find this book if you're up for a spooky read. But first, let's get to know Susan a little better. Susan, please tell us a little bit about your story, The Nest.
There's this antique dealer who is going to evaluate the estate of this old woman who the family's expecting is going to live a lot longer, and she encounters the ghost of the old woman's father who built the house. And it is actually loosely based on some real-life experiences that happened to a couple folks in Texas, but I reset the story in Virginia for the sake of the anthology.
How did you meet the 13 other authors who contributed to Bill of Fright?
I actually lived in the D.C. area for a little while, and I met some fellow writers there, and they invited me to join their group. And even though I no longer live there, when they were doing the anthology, they asked me to submit a story for it. So I submitted a story that I had worked on and off for a couple of years, let it sit there, and I really wanted to revisit it when this anthology came up. So I'm excited that it's been published.
Susie, if I'm remembering right, you live in Texas.
I do, born and raised. I was away, left for about 14 years, and then I came back 2009, I think.
Tell us a little bit about your acting background and how your interest shifted from acting to writing.
Sure. I finished college, and actually at the end of college, I worked as an intern on the feature film Powder, way back, I can't remember the year. But I was 19, turned 20, and I finished college. I met Jeff Goldblum working on the movie Powder, and we did a little cold reading together that just happened. And he liked what I did and invited me to study some acting with him at Playhouse West in Los Angeles. So I finished college, and I moved out to LA, and I studied acting for about 2 or 2.5 years at Playhouse West with Jeff and this man named Bob Carnegie. And it was phenomenal training, which, even though I don't act anymore, it definitely has helped me write better dialogue and understand characters better. But I just sort of got tired of living in Los Angeles and everything that went along with the entertainment industry, and I knew I wanted to write more. So ultimately, I ended up getting a master's in professional writing at the University of Southern California. My focus was screenwriting and playwriting. And I taught college English for a little while, and I finished my master's, and then I ended up moving to London because I wanted to explore theater more. And I did a master's in text and performance at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in King's College, which was fantastic. I got to do a little acting, a little writing, a little directing, and my thesis there was in playwriting. And then because I wasn't ready to leave London yet, I started teaching secondary school in England, drama and English, which was just a whole other story in itself. But as I was teaching English, I started reading some old books like Great Expectations, which I hadn't read since high school, and Tale of Two Cities. And then I started reading some other YA and middle grade fiction that was really popular in Britain, and I really was having fun with it. And I thought, I had one fiction class in college. I want to start writing some fiction. So that's when the idea for my first novel was born, which I'm still polishing. But I also was able to work on some short stories, too.
Susie, when I spent time with you in Houston, I found out so much about your acting background, and that was so interesting to me. Can you tell me, if you could star in any movie, maybe a remake of some horror film coming up, which one would it be?
The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I had to grab the book. There's another one called Hill House, which is also really good, by Richard Matheson. But The Haunting of Hill House I love because it is so psychologically tense. And there was a movie made back, I think it was the late 50s, early 60s with Julie Harris, and it is phenomenal. There's no special effects other than doors slamming, but they create all the psychological tension through the acting and the camera angles. And they remade this film late 90s, maybe in the early 2000s, and they used so many special effects that they killed the tension, and it was just more gory and more, it was too over the top with special effects, and it just lost the psychological tension. So if they could remake that more in the old style tradition, I think it would be great. And the only reason I maybe would act in that one, I'm not really big into acting anymore, but I had some teachers at one time tell me I reminded them of Julie Harris, and since she was in that film, maybe I could pull it off.
Who is your favorite author?
Wow, I don't have a favorite. I like historical fiction. I like Barry Unsworth and C.J. Sansom for historical fiction. For fantasy, I love Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. I love Harry Potter. For horror, Shirley Jackson and Richard Matheson, for sure, are my two favorites there. And playwriting, good old Will Shakespeare.
Susie, you have a new release coming out soon, don't you?
There's another short story that I'm really excited about. It's called The Cask. It is a modern retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Cask of Amontillado. And I actually taught that when I taught freshman college English. And so when I saw there was a call for retellings of that story or others that had to do with, well, the title of the anthology is tentatively Demon, Rum, and Other Evil Spirits. And so I was really excited to get to do a modern retelling of something I had taught before, because I really enjoy that story. So that hopefully will be out in 2015. Don't know exactly the month yet. The publisher has become part of a bigger publishing company, so we're still waiting to hear the dates.
Thank you so much, Susan, for visiting with us tonight. And everyone, go out and look at Amazon.com and find Bill of Frights and look for the story The Nest by SusanMcCauley.